And we're just live on social media. Gang and Annie, Christine, I've got a new bank of lights behind me that tells me when we're live on the various social media platforms, and there's always a delay on some of them. So, shall we talk about football? Come on, Annie, tell the world who's the team that you support.
Naturally, York City, the best in the world.
And Christine, who's the team that you support, please?
I've spent the last year supporting Macclesfield Town, and we've just become champions of the North West Counties League, and we're going to get promoted.
Excellent. I've just got to ask Beverly before I ask Beverly to send a video. Beverly, what's your favourite football team? Come on, Beverly, tell us. Oh, no, she's gone. Oh, no, she's there.
No, she's there.
No, yeah, I'm here, but I don't know anything about it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We want to watch this. What's your favourite polo team then, Beverly?
The one I play for.
What, the Argentinian one?
Yeah.
One. Yeah.
The one that's in the corner of the field.
Excellent. Yeah. And sorry, we're going off on a segue here. How was Spain and Senegal?
Well, I knew you were going to go into all of that. We haven't got time for those stories, I don't think.
This is the lady that went across Europe to Senegal in an electric car. Well, nearly Senegal in an electric car. Through France, through Spain in an electric car with my dog. With your dog. Beverly, could you just turn off your
I will. I'll disappear. I'm going.
We'll bring you back in. So Christine, we've got everyone coming in. I'm just allowing them in our lovely chaos that is Women in Food and Farming. Christine, could you just introduce Women in Food and Farming to us all, please?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Yes, Women in Food and Farming. It was originally a networking group, and I think we are. That is what we would like to be. But obviously, COVID's made it more difficult. We've been going for, I would say, about 12, 13 years, and we used to meet up 3 times a year. It was in London, but there were groups formed in sort of Scotland and in Edinburgh and in Norwich as well. But the purpose was really for women in the industry, many of us who probably often were used to sort of being in meetings where the only woman in the room, really to just have a place where we could get together, where particularly younger people could speak to those of us that had a few more years behind us in the industry and see if we could support each other. And to be honest, they're some of the noisiest events I've ever been to, just all of these women chatting together. And we've done our best to keep ourselves moving during COVID. And it was Max set up this wonderful Beanstalk Global. And at a very early stage, we nabbed one of his slots. And so he's hosted us every month since November 2020 when we've had a speaker.
And I was saying to our fantastic speaker, who we're going to do the big intro for shortly, the brilliant Rozanne Davis. I was telling her yesterday about the jeopardy that we have with this broadcast because of the way it's set up and how great it is. But I forgot to tell her, Christine, Annie, I don't know if you heard this. We nearly set a world record. What was it, about 9 months ago, with the most pets on Zoom at the end of the broadcast. Everyone got a pet, a dog. Someone had a flamingo. I can't remember who that was, Christine, but someone definitely cheated on the back of it. But it's worked really well. We've had some absolutely stunning speakers that you've all managed to source. So no pressure on Roz on that basis. But we're just talking in the green room. I think on the basis that we can see light at the end of the tunnel and the likes of Fruit Logisticas happening in Berlin this week, and we're hopefully getting back to some sense of normality. It'd be great with Women in Food and Farming if you have an event coming up, whether it be in the summer or September. And I know everyone that's the team behind the scenes, Women in Food and Farming, are organising that. So just watch that space for that next event. Annie, shall we bring you into the equation and tell Christine, why have we got Annie in? Why have we got the amazing Annie in, please?
Well, Annie and I have known each other for quite a while because she's actually one of the people who did MDS and then set up a business that then recruited people from MDS. Actually, there was 2 of you at the time, weren't there, on the board when I first met you, Annie? And you used to regularly have 2 MDS trainees in the business. And that's how I got to know Annie. And then a few months ago, so she's been involved in Women in Food and Farming, and she said, do you know, I've got a cracking speaker for you. And that's how this particular one's come up. So you need to ask Annie more about the speaker.
Okay. Annie, I didn't know that you did MDS. I should have known that. That's fantastic.
You can tell, can't you, Max?
Yeah, well, now I can. Did you enjoy it? Would you recommend MDS?
Yeah, I loved it. I did MDS, it's a couple of years ago now, maybe group, was it 30? No, it was in 6 digits, I'm pretty sure. I don't think we even had numbers for them then. So yes, I did MDS, and that's what brought me into the fresh produce industry and the food industry, and I've been in that industry ever since. And it was more recently, in the last 10 years, that I got to know Roz through the Cheer Company. We worked together on a couple of projects at the time, and since then, actually, Roz moved across to work with the B Corp part of her business. So that's how I got to know Roz, and I don't think I know anyone else in the industry. I mean, I don't know everyone, obviously, but there are not many businesses of the scale that Roz has worked with that have brought the business across into a B Corp business. And I just can't believe that a business of that scale could do it so fluidly. And that's something that Roz achieved. And I just thought she'd be a great person to introduce us to that whole huge subject.
Huge subject. Should we do a drum roll, Annie, and bring Roz in, do you think?
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
okay.
Definitely.
Roz, come on in. We want to see our speaker of the day. Here's Roz. Hey, fantastic. Okay, Roz, Roz, it's great to have you in. So presumably you're going to reciprocate, Annie, that you've known Annie. Has it been great working with Annie over the years?
It's been really great, Max. Really, really great. It's always felt like a real sense of partnership and collaboration. So yeah, we work really, really well together, and sort of kept contact and the connection between us over the last years, which has been really positive. And a massive thank you to Max, you and Christine and Annie, first of all, for your very kind words in the introduction, but also, I guess, for me to come in and the opportunity to share with you on a topic that I'm really, really passionate about. So thank you for the chance. Unfortunately, I have no pets with me, and I'm feeling very envious of the pink flamingo example. But there we go. Next time, I'll make sure I'm well armed. Yeah.
I nearly grabbed the video to replay it because it was one of the most watched videos that we've ever produced. Isn't it amazing? You do all this serious stuff, but then you have I think it was 50 or 60 people all with their pets, and it gets the most views. It's just the way of the internet. So to everyone, a little bit of housekeeping. So we're now live on LinkedIn, live on Facebook, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, and also live with our Zoom individuals who've kindly signed up. Roz is going to talk to us solo for about 10-15 minutes, and then we're going to have a Q&A with some of the women of food farmers, including Annie. So if you've got any questions whilst we're going through that, just put them in the Q&A, or if you've got my WhatsApp me, or message us through LinkedIn or Facebook. And then when we finish, we'll stop the social media feeds and we'll go into our breakout rooms. And we think this is going to be about 40 minutes, 50 minutes of, Roz, I keep on saying this, of jeopardy to see how it takes us. So Annie, could you do us a huge favor? Now we've used you and you've introduced Roz into our network. You can go, Annie, but we'll bring you back a little bit later. So if you could turn off your video. And Roz, if it's okay, I'm just going to give a bit more of a slightly detailed description of yourself, especially for those people on the podcast, because people, especially the younger generation that dial in on a UK and international basis, especially with your international background, Roz, we'd be doing a misservice if we didn't give you, pump up your tires and tell the world about you. So we're delighted to have Roz Davis, a key industry sustainability and B Corp expert on women in food and farming in our April outing. Roz has an incredible wealth of knowledge in many parts of the industry, including fresh procurement, having spent 14 years at Innocent. Oh, got some questions there for you, Roz, about the amazing business that is Innocent, and 7 years at Capespan, equally a fantastic business. This was also where Roz delivered B Corp for the company and in respect of Innocent Drinks. And as we all know, if you know anything about B Corp, it's a real mountain to climb in a small business. But to achieve this in a well-established and substantial business is a whole new level of complexity. It's an incredible achievement. Now Roz has moved on to set up her own business, Our Legacy Sustainability Consultancy Consulting Limited, and as a true expert in this field, has kindly agreed to speak to women in food and farming about B Corp. I cannot think of anyone more suited and qualified to do so, to steal the words from Annie. Roz is passionate about supporting business and agriculture on sustainability and holds a BSc in Engineering and a BSc Agriculture and Horticulture from South Africa. So, Roz, was that okay? Did we big you up enough, or is there any more that you'd like to add to that?
Max, amazing job. Thank you. Far better than I could do for myself. So really, really appreciate it. Thanks very, very much. Thank you.
Okay. But Ros, I do think sometimes when we have people on that you're very modest in what you do and what you achieve, and occasionally you need people like me to say that people like you, Ros, are amazing around this whole area of sustainability and B Corp. So Ros, shall we pass it over to you to run with the proverbial baton, and I'll turn my video off and give you the floor. Would that be okay?
Brilliant, Max. Sounds great. Thank you, and a really warm hello to all of you for joining the call. As you know, Max and Annie and Christine have mentioned, over the next 10 to 15 minutes, I'd love to share with you, I guess, what I see as the opportunity, the responsibility even, for business to really be that force for good that I know many businesses want to be, and really how B Corp can help to be a pathway for a business to be a force for good. So what I'd love to walk through is a little bit of background, scene setting, the why. Second of all, to talk about what is B Corp, try and express that in a really simple, accessible way, and then finish off by talking about the how. How can B Corp help and support businesses? Yes, it's a topic I'm really passionate about. So to help keep me on track, I will, be glancing down at my notes, as we go through. But before we talk about business and B Corp, I really wanted to start off by sharing a bit of a personal story of where my passion for sustainability and leaving things better, really started. And that goes back to me growing up on a farm. I'm a daughter of a farmer. And I guess seeing how my dad worked with nature to get the most out of the crops he was sort of planting and nurturing is really the point that really started me off, really early in my life. For those of you who know the rains in Africa, you'll know there's nothing soft or gentle about them. They tend to be short, but a massive deluge. So, an enormous amount of water in a really short space of time. And what I saw with my dad, I guess, was how he really carefully had to design his fields with this sort of really clear and sort of quite clever contouring to really work with nature. First of all, from a protecting the soil perspective, really reducing that risk of soil erosion through the contouring, that wonderful, rich, deep red topsoil that we know of Africa. But then second of all, also using those contours to capture the water and harness it in a way that it could be collected and then fed back to the crops. And I guess from an early age, the sense of what I saw my dad working with in terms of this interdependency and the interconnectedness between soil, water, and land and crop was really something that struck me, I guess, really early on, and was the start of my passion, for all things sustainability and particularly, linked to agriculture and food. So let's talk about business, and I want to take us back to the 60s, 70s as a start, where very prominent economists were talking about the purpose of business and saying, business does have a purpose, but it's a sole purpose. It's a very single-minded purpose. And that purpose of business was all about making profit. And that approach to business, I guess, for me, is a significant contributor, to what our planet looks like today. And we all know the statistics that we live with, 60% reduction in wildlife populations since the 1970s, 26 people in the world having the same net worth as the bottom 3.8 billion, and the 10 most food insecure countries producing less than 0.1% of the global GHG. So we all see this degraded environment and natural resources, this social inequality, and for us in food and agriculture, this real sense of a deepening in food insecurity. Just this week, the latest report came out from the IPCC recommending that we have just 3 years left for GHG emission levels to peak on the planet. And then after that, they have to drastically fall. in order for us to stay within our planetary boundaries. So we know we're in a global crisis. How do we tackle this global crisis? Is it by solving a specific set of problems, moving through them one at a time? It's really got too far for that approach. Really what we need is to change things at a system level, because it's the system that I think we all recognize that is broken. It's no longer just about a set of issues, it's about the overall system. And I don't know about you, but I hear system change, systemic change, and that makes me feel, it feels quite overwhelming, really enormous, and this real sense of where on earth do you start? So let's start with, I guess, a big driver of the system, which is business, and talk about the role and opportunity of business, and the single biggest challenge that has sat with the system of business that we've had up until now, going back to those prominent economists in the 1970s, has been the fact that business has all been about profit. And that's had three consequences amongst lots of others. It's first of all been at the expense of people and the environment, and we all know lots of examples of that. Second of all, it's come with a lack of accountability for business to step up and be counted and take responsibility. And thirdly, that's also all been underpinned by a lack of transparency for business to be transparent around the impact. Now, this is not to knock profit. Profit has got a role to play, an important role to play in fueling business and enabling business to be a force for good and to do more good. But what if the new vision of business, that the new way was about bringing the balance, and that's profit balanced with people and planet? Where business is no longer just about serving shareholders, but it's about a duty to stakeholders, that broader sense of stakeholders, that sense of people and planet being in balance with business. And this is exactly what B Corp's vision offers to do, to redefine what success in business looks like, that it is about profit and purpose being in balance, ultimately to create this new economy that's more equitable and much more inclusive than we have now. So that's a little bit of scene setting, a little bit about the why and I guess the vision of what B Corp is striving to do. Let's talk a little bit about the what B Corp is. And I guess in service of that vision of redefining success in business, B Corp is really four things. It's first of all a framework, a guide on what a business needs to think about in managing the impact. And very simply put, it's about thinking about all the touch points that a business has got with people and with the environment. And for every one of those touch points, thinking about how a business can dial up the positive impact and can reduce the negative impact. And this framework or guide is consolidated in an online tool called the B Impact Assessment, or BIA. And the great thing is the tool is free for any business to use. You don't need to be going through the certification, and I'll come back to certification. And for me, the power of completing and working with the BIA, using it as a tool for business, is really from two angles. First of all, it gives a really good picture of what's going well in a business. And that's important. Just as we as people know that our strengths give us a clue on how to tackle our improvement areas. It's the same for business. It's really important to clock what's going well and celebrate the success. But the BIA also clearly spells out where's the opportunity for improvement in a way that is structured and using this guideline and framework. So business knows where to start and can use that guideline and framework to guide them in terms of tackling actions, building an action plan, and then tailoring that, of course, according to what the mission is of a business, their vision, their level of ambition, and also their level of resource. So really, really helpful guide, framework that is open to any business to use. Taking that framework and guide a step further, the second thing that B Corp is, it represents a certification for business, which really uses the BIA to verify that a business is using the highest set of social and environmental standards. Now, the certification is not simple, as I'm sure all of you who've had any touch points with B Corp will know. But if I try and simplify the requirements into 3 points, first of all, to be certified, a business needs to have a minimum performance requirement to really give that level of confidence and credibility. And that's expressed through achieving at least a score of 80 within the BIA or B impact assessment. The second requirement is something that is pretty fundamental and for me really powerful. And it involves a business making a legal change, a change to their governing documents, their articles of association, and effectively enshrining in those documents, writing into those documents, the commitment that the business is now not just about shareholders, but it's also about stakeholders. So a really powerful step for a business to make. And then the third requirement is a commitment for a business to be transparent, and how that shows up is through a commitment to publish publicly an annual report on the impact that a business is having on people and on the environment. So if we go back to what we were talking about earlier, I guess what we haven't had in business up until now, B Corp is really driving at, first of all, bringing in that balance between profit and purpose. Second of all, enforcing that sense of business being accountable and responsible. And thirdly, that requirement around transparency around the impact that a business is having. The third thing that a B Corp is, it's a community. It's a community of like-minded businesses which share not just an aspiration around wanting to inspire wider change and positive change, but also share many of the same challenges. So within the community, there's a really strong focus around sharing knowledge and sharing experiences in a very open and transparent way, but also a focus around developing and sharing resources that can help and support businesses. And one example I can give is the Climate Justice Playbook, which was developed by the B Corp community. Again, it's publicly available for anybody to use, and it really serves as a guide for businesses around how they tackle the really complex topic of climate justice. And finally, B Corp is also a movement. It's a movement for change that's spearheading this sense of system change. And a really practical example of that, for those of you in the UK, you may have heard of the Better Business Act. It's a campaign to change the UK Companies Act. So directors going forward will have a responsibility, a duty to stakeholders, not just to shareholders. So really making that balance between purpose and profit no longer optional for businesses, but really part of a requirement for businesses. And there's now over 1,000 businesses who are supporting this campaign in the UK. So we've talked about B Corp as a really helpful framework and guideline. We've talked about B Corp as a certification, really demonstrating and proving that a business is operating to the highest social and environmental standards. We've talked about B Corp as a community of like-minded businesses and also a movement. Let's, for the next few moments, just zoom above B Corp. And what do we notice in terms of global dynamics related to business, and how do these relate to what B Corp is trying to do and what it offers for business? So I'll touch on 5 things that I notice and see, and I'm sure many of these will resonate with you. The first thing that we're noticing is this global shift, positive, this rallying cry for system change and for business to become more purposeful. And we saw this example in the UK back in 2019. Some of you will remember the front page of the Financial Times with the headline, bright yellow, capitalism, time for a reset. And then the example from the US, again, back in 2019, the Business Roundtable redefining the purpose of business as being to promote an economy that serves all. So pretty fundamental statements that we just haven't seen really before. And businesses who don't become part of this shift, of this sort of fundamental sea change, really will get left behind. If I put a bit more of a positive spin on that, what an opportunity for business to be part of shaping this historic shift and what it might look like going forward. And connected to this point, for any of us working in sustainability, connected to sustainability, we all know the massive complexity of the issues that we're trying to solve and deal with. And the BIA, the B Impact Assessment, can really act as a guideline of where to focus, where to start, where to action as a business. To mention a sense of scale, using the UK as an example, there's now over 700 B Corps in the UK, representing over 40,000 workers, and stretching across a very wide, diverse portfolio of 56 different industries. And the UK is one of the fastest growing B Corp communities. Second of all, what I'm sure we all notice and see is this massive increase in the awareness of people, of consumers, on environmental and social issues, coupled with this significant speed of communication and tech, news becoming viral really within hours of going out. And that's really pushing business to be much more transparent around what business is doing, what commitments they're making. And that pressure is only going to increase going forward. And B Corp provides a really clear way for businesses to be transparent around the impact and what they're setting out to do. If we come to employees, increasingly, I think we all notice that employees are much more discerning about the values and the purpose of a potential employer, or indeed their current employer. And a business being a B Corp can provide that extra sense of credibility to attract and retain that great talent that we all want. Talking of confidence, we also see this increased focus from the financial investment sector on social and environmental performance of a business. And again, B Corp can play a role. And finally, a softer point, if we look at business leaders, actually anyone in business, we're being increasingly challenged around what's going to be the legacy that we will leave behind. Is it something that we will be proud of? Is it something that future generations will be proud of as well? And again, the sense of legacy plays really strongly into the philosophy of B Corp in terms of helping people in business, business leaders and businesses to really be that force for good in a really credible, discernible and strong way. So as I move to a close, I guess, having worked with B Corp for a number of years, I wanted to share with you, I guess, how does B Corp make me feel? We fundamentally are a collection of human beings at the end of the day. And I will talk about three things that B Corp makes me feel. It, first of all, speaking really honestly, makes me feel challenged. It's really rigorous. It's really probing. It's very holistic in terms of touching all areas of a business. But it has really inspired me to really, really think about what makes positive impact in the context of a specific business. It also makes me feel really supported. There's a really strong sense of collaboration and openness within the B Corp community and between fellow B Corps. And it also, I think, has made me feel more emboldened. I think it's helped me to make some braver decisions, and that's because I feel part of a movement rather than being on my own and going it alone, and also being able to lean back on the BIA, the B Impact Assessment, as a foundation to help with decision making. So I started this afternoon with a story. So let me finish with a story, and this comes from our time in lockdown. And for me, I get energy and inspiration from reading about people's experiences with adventure, and as part of that, watching adventure films and seeing how people explore and pioneer new territory. And this particular film that I've got in mind was about an expedition to Borneo, looking at exploring a cave system. And part of the film focused on what is believed to be one of the earliest, the oldest rock paintings in the world. And it's what that community all those years ago chose to paint that really struck a chord with me. And what they chose to paint, what they chose to leave behind, was a painting of their hands. And what it came across to me was effectively a picture of the hands of everybody within the community. And for me, there was just this really powerful sense of connectedness and interdependency and the sort of coexistence that really came across from this image captured by that community. And I guess talking about bravery, talking about interconnectedness and interdependency, these are things that we know we need, in bucket loads as we tackle these really complex challenges that face us going forward. So thank you so much for listening to me. I really look forward to any questions you have, but also any comments. Would be really interested to hear any commentary from you. And Max, back to you. Thanks very much.
There's a number of things, Roz. I've just got to congratulate you on to do a presentation such as that solo with no PowerPoint to hide behind it is such a difficult thing to do. But in my eyes, it's so much more effective than having a PowerPoint. So the fact that you were able to get this message across about such an important subject, just fantastic. And I've just scribbled down some notes, so in no particular order. The fact that it's enabled you to make braver decisions, I wasn't expecting that. But I completely understand now that I've listened to you, the movement of change, a system of change, what an opportunity for business. And if you needed the understanding as to how successful it is at the moment, in the UK alone, 700 B Corps, 40,000 workers under that umbrella, 56 different industries. And the bit I really love, it's great for employers, the credibility, because it's something that we always say with my recruitment hat on, that employers aren't very good at promoting themselves. But those companies, say like the likes of Innocent, that realize that they've got to be a business for change, and to be able to offer B Corp, and for those, especially the younger generation that want to make a difference in the world, to be involved with a business that is ensconced with B Corp. So I think it's excellent. But let's get down to the nuts and bolts. And I'm going to just ask you a big fat hairy question. But whilst I'm just getting that set up, Annie, Christine, Debbie, Camilla, Beverly, can you just turn on your vids? So Roz, Legal in General, it was about 2.5 years ago, stated that those on an international basis, Legal in General, one of the biggest pension fund investors in the UK, and they look after a portfolio of, I think it's nearly $1 trillion sterling. They stated to the top 200 companies that they invest their pension funds into, that if they didn't have a diversified management board at senior level, by the end of 2022, they're going to pull the funding from those companies. And those companies, they've actually, it's sort of societal change. They've been frightened. They've had to make that change, either on a positive, or being dragged by the scruff of the neck to make that change. And now there is a diversified board in those a bulk of those 200 businesses. Roz, do you think we need to go to that level in the respect of B Corp, that the likes of Legal in General and other institutions, perhaps even government, should be requesting, dictating to businesses that they should adopt the likes of B Corp to create this change that we need to accelerate that change? Roz, what do you think?
I think fundamentally, from a business perspective, it's got to be part of a mission and vision of the business. It's got to be something that is completely integrated with the business. If it's just something that's on the surface, or just ticking a few boxes, it will just never drive the depth of the positive impact that I think that we need within business. So for me, my advice to business would be the most important thing is you've got to be thinking about your positive impact and how that is completely built in to your fundamental mission and vision and values as a business. That's where it's got to start. It's got to be within your DNA. It's got to be integrated into how you approach business, how you make your decisions.
Well done. Okay, so let's ask two people who are with two key businesses. Camilla's in a fascinating agtech business. Beverly is Beverly, the president of G's. What are we going to get away with that, Beverly? We keep on bringing that up. Two different sides of businesses. But Camilla, Beverly, have you investigated B Corp? Would you like to be involved in as a B Corp business? Camilla, you go first.
Yeah, from my perspective, it's something that I've been aware of and wondered about. But to be honest, for our scale of business, we're 10 people in the team. It's felt like it would be a lot of work and quite overwhelming. So I'm interested to learn more from you, Roz, in terms of if you think it's something that's actually suitable for that scale of business. Roz?
Absolutely. I've worked with businesses who've had four people within the business, very much startup. I've even had conversations with a business that had a single employee, just the founder. And it goes from there all the way through to multinationals. So I think that's, one of the positive points with B Corp is that it applies across a whole range of industries, but also across a whole different sets of different models for business and also different size of business. I think the advantage of incorporating B Corp into the thinking early on in a business is that you get going early on. And as you build potentially more, more systems and processes and more governance, etc., within a business, that thinking about people and planet is fundamentally integrated into everything that you build and do and design.
So to go to Beverly, Beverly is involved with one of the most successful businesses in UK, if not European, fresh produce. Beverly, help me with the numbers. 500 million turnover, sites in the UK, Spain,
Czech,
Portugal,
Poland, Senegal, America.
Senegal. Don't forget America. B Corp, is it something that you would look at, Beverly, or does it frighten you because of the scale of your business and how you would look to adopt it?
So we have looked at B Corp, and Roz and I have met quite a few years ago. Roz, can you remember how long ago? 5 or 6 or 7? Right. And we met when we were at Haygrove. And so that's kind of another organization that grows fruit, berries, internationally for the UK primarily, but also Europe retailers. But so I've kind of known of B Corp for many years, and because I met Roz and she did the similar, this kind of conversation, it was along these lines when we met way back then. I brought the thinking around B Corp into G's at that point, and if I'm honest, it was a little bit early way back then. Since then, we've invested a lot of thinking, and we've got a real cultural movement going now on people, profit, planet. And Guy Shropshire, who's our CEO, has really taken this on as his mantra. So the whole ESG agenda is kind of really being pushed forward. And I think the reason why we haven't automatically gone and adopted B Corp maybe yet, Roz, is because we're kind of finding our feet in really measuring carbon is a big one. So we're investing a lot of time and effort. And as you say, Max, it's an enormous business to be able to get your hands around to measure the carbon and in all the different phases. In terms of people, one of the things that I've been kind of wrestling with, and I notice on the B Corp site, is impact on local communities.
Wow.
It'd be really interesting to sort of think about how we measure that easily. And I noticed the measurement that you've put in there is about how many or proportion of people that are managers from local communities. Yeah.
So just with my marketing head on, Annie, I'm going to throw this one at you. With a marketing hat on, do you think there's going to be an advantage, especially with UK retailers, if you're a B Corp, that you're going to be more attractive to them, and you might actually be able to squeeze a little bit more margin out of a UK retailer if you're B Corp certified? Annie, what do you think?
It's a really good question, and I would love to be able to say absolutely that's exactly what they're looking for. I have to say that my experience so far is that there are still priorities higher up the agenda than the sustainability measure for of any brand for a retailer, which is I'm sad to have to say that, but that is my honest opinion. The benefit I think you have is quite difficult for own label, but certainly as a brand, it's with the consumer. It's not necessarily, it's a nice to have for a retailer, but I genuinely don't think it's something that would necessarily give you an advantage. But I think it absolutely will give an advantage in terms of the consumer, and that's not necessarily they'll think it's absolutely marvellous that that's something that you've got. I think it'll become almost a requirement for consumers soon. They will just expect you to be that, and many consumers, particularly the younger generations, will spend time investigating a brand before they become loyal to it. And once they're comfortable with the credentials, the environmental credentials of that brand, they'll give you that loyalty.
Annie, I'm smiling like a Cheshire cat because last week I did an interview with Kathy Burns, who's the new CEO of the International Fresh Produce Association in the States, and they're a global trade organization. And I posted this question about how can we get kids and their families to eat more fruit and veg. And she actually stated that what we've got to create is cultural change. And so they're actually going to a lot of conferences in the States to enforce the whole element that we all know about eating correctly, fresh produce. And with B Corp, you can see how that would fit in so well on a cultural change basis. That, Annie, correct me if I'm wrong here, that if we can educate and inform the consumer, if they're buying product that is B Corp certified, that's going to create that change within the retailer. The retailer is going to wake up to that and then only look to have suppliers that are B Corp certified. Annie?
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point. And in fact, I mean, there is some change. So if you go onto Ocado, for example, you can actually select B Corp brands only. So they've actually categorized it. So they're the only one I know that do that. And obviously in bricks and mortar stores, that's actually quite difficult to achieve. But no, that is true. As if enough consumers commit to B Corp or any other sustainability accreditation, then that will force the retailers to do that. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, and if it's okay, one of our panel, who I'll just keep it anonymous for the sake of the social media feeds, has just stated, I'm seeing glimmers of change with retailers in recent meetings involving commercial, technical and ethical teams. So it's not something that's going to happen overnight, but if we have a weight of momentum behind B Corp, it's going to be advantageous. So Ros, back to yourself.
Max, can I just say something? No, yep. I just wanted to say it's an old story, but when M&S decided to go with their plan A, which of course has got sort of something along the sort of similar principles of B Corp, they actually put a sum of money aside thinking it would cost their business to do it. And then when they decided they were going to do it and they put their best brains onto the things they needed to start tackling, they realized it was saving them money. And I think got to get away from, if we do this, will we get more money from the retailers? This is the right thing to be doing. And if you put your best brains on trying to do what's right for the planet, you will probably find, exactly like M&S, that you're actually making money. And it was a huge surprise to M&S, who had a budget for doing these things that they thought would be good for their brand, to find that they were actually making money from it. And I think we've got to get over this, can I get more money for this? Can I get more money for that? And thinking, this is the right thing to do. Let's do it properly. Let's not greenwash it. Let's do it fundamentally from the grassroots up. And I bet you it will end up with a better way of doing business.
Christine, thank you. It was almost like you were previously in a previous life, an ex-grocery code adjudicator or something. Amazing. Shall we, Polly, come on, Polly, come on in. Throw your question in, please. Come on, Polly.
I'm here. Hi.
Go.
I've just started a regenerative and organic food truck for festivals and events. And for us, we only sell regenerative or organic produce. So it's really hard to get across to the customer. We're actually just starting on the B Corp road, but it's really hard to get across to the customer that the food that we serve in our truck is well above the level that most people do, and all are like fully compostable. We are no waste, and actually it would really help us if producers and distributors went B Corp or had the certification of some kind, because it's really hard to get it across. Like, my job is to get it across to Joe Bloggs in the street, the difference between sustainability of the food system and the health wise of choosing better food for people and planet. And it's really hard to do it without something like this. So if more of the bigger producers and bigger food industry people did do the B Corp, it would help us at a ground grassroots level.
That's excellent. And Polly, come on, give us a big shout out. What have you got a website? Have you got an Instagram we can follow you on?
Yeah, Jolly Allotment. My Jolly Allotment. We're a food sustainable and regenerative food truck and speaker program.
Excellent. Jolly Allotment. Well, that's brilliant. That's fantastic. So, Ros, come on, let's go through the nuts and bolts about this on the basis of what Polly just said. If a business is looking to go down the B Corp route, what's your one top tip to give them to get them underway, please, Ros?
Yeah, Max, tricky to boil it down to one. I guess for me, I think one of the most important things is to make sure that you've really got your stakeholders on the journey, and in particular people within the business. This can't feel like it's something that's just pushed from top down. You've really got to be engaging your people within the business so that it becomes a cultural change. It becomes integrated into how the business works and operates and makes decisions, because it's not just about getting that initial certification. It's about then that sort of ongoing sense of making the most of B Corp. So that would be, if you did nothing else, it would be that, to really focus on engaging people within the business on B Corp, rather than it feeling like just a top-down instruction.
And just on that side, Ros, how is B Corp kept credible? Presumably there's a team, there's administration that can help everyone from the likes of a Polly to a Beverly at G's.
That's right. So that's really centered within what's called B Lab, which is the not-for-profit. So lots of B's, which is the not-for-profit. Which does two things. First of all, it sort of coordinates and brings the community of B Corps together, but also it administers and manages the certification process and the B impact assessment as the certification tool. And B Lab have got a very rigorous sort of governance structure, making sure that they maintain that sense of credibility. And they are there to help and support businesses through the certification, but at the same time maintain that sense of real rigor, to make sure that they're protecting the credibility of the certification and the B Corp brand.
Is it self-assessed or is it audited? How do you make sure that it is rigorous?
Christine, it's a mixture of the two. So completing the BIA is initially done as a self-assessment, and then you go through a verification process with the B Lab analyst, which is effectively then the auditing side, where they're effectively verifying how you've answered and filled in the BIA. So it's a mixture of both.
Is that a one-off when you get accredited, and then, or is that an annual thing? How do you make sure that people are going backwards?
Every 3 years. So every 3 years, there's a requirement to recertify and go all the way back through the certification process, the verification, demonstrating evidence, etc. So that level of rigor, if anything, my experience is it sort of increases over time, and that level of scrutiny. Yeah.
Excellent. Debbie, come on. You were the head of technical at Sainsbury's. I'm over promoting everyone again. Oh, no, you were. What's your view of B Corp in the respect of, I'm just going to say it, the other comparable schemes, the likes of Global Gap and Leaf? If you were advising someone with your Sainsbury's hat on, or if you were a fresh produce company looking to go down this route, would you adopt B Corp, or would you look at Leaf? Would you look at Global Gap, or would you look to encompass them all? help me, Debbie.
What I would like about B Corp is the fact that it's international, and that you could therefore bring more of a standard for different countries when you're bringing stuff to the UK, for instance. I'm not sure that somebody like the major retailers would pay more, but I think over time this sort of thing will become absolutely necessary. I can't see major players staying in the game without credibility in the areas that we've talked about, like people management and planet. It just isn't going to work. And this for me would be a shorthand way of a good supplier demonstrating credibility. So I would look very positively on it.
Okay.
But there's inevitably a journey, like there was with Leaf. If you go back, Caroline Drummond's done a fantastic job, but if you go back 20 years or 25 years, it was still it's still quite a journey for a number of people, a number of businesses. So yeah. I think this is great, and the more of it, the better.
Yeah, and Roz, just on that side of things, one thing that we've really learned, all of us, whether it be on this broadcast or the other broadcasts that we've done, is collaboration. It is a collaboration with B Corp and other not dissimilar organisations.
Max, there is. So I guess one example of that is with the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and what B Corp have done is they have mapped the BIA against the SDGs. So if a business is wanting to assess both the performance against the BIA, but also how they're stacking up against the SDGs, they're able to do that using the BIA tool. So there's very much a sense of it's not about competition. There's room for us all, within the sense of sort of driving positive change and in business. So yeah, that's very much part of the B Corp philosophy, is around reaching out, collaborating and partnering.
Okay, and Ross, we're getting some really interesting questions, and I'm just going to nominate this question because of the social media, and I don't want to present the person who posed this question. But it's such a good question. What happens, Ross, if there are infringements during that 3-year cycle that we just talked about? Thinking of the likes of Brewdog, which I believe is a B Corp, employee working conditions scandal. How would that be investigated by B Corp? Sorry, it's a big hairy one, but these things occasionally happen in business. So help us, please, Ross.
I was expecting that question to come up. Thank you. And I guess, yes, that particular example and any other infringement, it gets investigated by B Lab. And I know with the statements that they have issued, is that something that they take really seriously. And I know also, all of my experience with B Lab, whatever they do, there's a real sense of rigor, but also a real sense of making sure they get all of the right facts around them, and that there's a real sense of fairness in terms of their approach. So yeah, to answer it really simply, it's something that's taken really seriously by B Lab, but is then investigated, by them on a case-by-case basis.
Excellent. Thank you, Ros. Question from West Africa. Ros is brilliant. We'd love to engage with her direct, but question of her. My financial director is tighter than I won't say that, is very scrupulous with the money. Let's just say that. What is the ROI? What is the return of investment in investing in the B Corp journey? Will it make us money so that I can persuade our FD to engage with it? Ros.
Yeah, so I think it sort of very much links in with what Christine was saying. As you start looking at how you change your impact as a business, you see these positive impacts on the bottom line. So simple things like, being able to retain talent, is then going to, reduce your staff turnover and all of the costs associated, with that, in terms of managing your resources, in terms of water and carbon and energy. There's going to be cost savings associated, with that, with the whole business being more purpose driven. You could argue there'll be, a tighter level of efficiency within the business. So I've seen lots of examples of where this is saving cost and making the business more efficient and streamlined and actually better at decision making versus adding cost.
Yeah, well done. I found from a recruitment perspective, having B Corp as a for the client in question, for them to be nominated as B Corp, that definitely helps on a recruitment process. And Hannah has just come in with a question: is there evidence of businesses being B Corp enabled, getting better employee retention rates, and also attracting more people? And Beverly, just over to you on that one. With the amount of people that you look to employ either on a temporary or a full-time basis, do you think, whether it be G's or other businesses, do you think it would be advantageous to have that label of B Corp and what that signifies associated with your business and other businesses?
Certainly. So whether it's B Corp or another accreditation, but some way of communicating the message. So if you can get the message out there of what the business purpose is, because as we've all discussed recently, in the last few minutes, around how people are more and more interested in what kind of business you are. They don't just want to sign up for an organization that hasn't got heart and purpose and soul. And it's really difficult to get that message out, say, on your website or whatever recruiting platform that you're using. So accreditation can help.
Yes, and Christy's just come up with a great comment. Is this the new investors and people, but much deeper? Christine, I was thinking exactly the same thing. That investors and people was great, but now, with the benefit of hindsight, it doesn't have the purpose of B Corp. So it's probably not the fair thing to compare it. But it sounds like.
All businesses were trying to get their little grey and black investors in people flat. Yeah. To put on their door and to say it when they're recruiting. And actually this is the badge, it's the badge of honor that when you're recruiting, if somebody sees it, they actually know what it means. I've just put my Sustainable Development Goals badge on. I had to order 100 because they were out of stock, so I the people that made them in Taiwan. So, and then I printed some little cards because I was giving them to people and they didn't know what they were. So if anybody would like one, give me your address and I'll send you one. A few left.
Christina, we're a bit disappointed that you're not wearing the other 99, but that's a conversation for another time. Camilla, I know you're very happy in your role, but on the basis that you're of a younger generation than a lot of us here, if you're in a parallel universe, if you were looking for another role, and say there's like a commercial director role in your sector with two different companies, and one was B Corp and one was not B Corp, which one would you go for, Camilla?
I don't think I'd look at just B Corp alone, but any job that I've looked at, the employee culture and the mission of the company is very important. So being a B Corp would be, I guess, a good indicator of that, but I'd also want to understand more about the company and how it works and its mission and vision.
Yeah, and Camilla, I'm going to put words in your mouth, but on the basis that they've done good by doing B Corp, that there'll be the I was going to say inflection, wrong word. That there'll be the understanding that they must have done other things within the business. They just haven't rifled in on B Corp. That the whole B Corp ethos is going to be spread throughout the business. So again, that using you as our test case, that would give you that security that that's a business to go for.
Yeah, it would definitely be reassuring.
Okay, Ros, where's B Corp going to be in 5 years' time, please?
So my hope, Max, my hope is that it's even more global than it is now. That it is, I guess, almost the sort of de facto, expectation for businesses to have achieved, and that there's a really high degree of consumer awareness of B Corp and what it means for a business. So that's my hope. That's my hopes for B Corp going forward.
Okay, and how can we all help? I've talked about collaboration, but Ros, how can we all help on this call and all those listening in, dialed into social media? How can we all help you and B Corp?
Well, I think, again, a number of us have touched on this. I think it's about, first of all, looking at businesses that you are supporting from a purchase perspective. Getting to understand them, getting to know what is the sense of commitment to people and planet. I think that's really important and something that all of us can do. I think the second thing is have a look at the B Corp website. There's a ton of resources available for any business to use to help and support on that journey that Beverly was talking about in terms of changing culture and moving forward, and also the BIA as a free online tool again for any business to use to get a view of how they're stacking up, what's going well, but where could they improve going forward.
Ros, thank you. The clock is ticking, so I'm just going to get our little panel to wrap up for us. I'm just going to steal some of the words of Christine. If you remember when M&S came out with the Plan A scenario program, the strap line was, it is Plan A because there is no Plan B. So on that basis, do you think we should be endorsing B Corp, and how can we help to endorse B Corp ongoing? Annie, over to you first.
Just on the side to that, I just following up on what Ros just said about thinking about your suppliers and so on. I think it's worth considering not just the traditional suppliers that we think of in fresh produce or in farming, which supplying goods to you, but your accountants, the solicitors, the transport companies, the HR providers, all those any business can be B Corp. It doesn't have to be a manufacturing or food or farming business. And actually sometimes it's just as easy for them to go through the process, if not easier. So that's I think that's a really important thing to bear in mind. And sometimes we forget about those people.
Yeah, but I actually did write it down when Ross said 56 different industries in the UK are B Corp registered. Debbie, should we be endorsing B Corp?
Absolutely. I think it's just a great example of doing the right thing by people and planet, which is amazing. Boom.
There's the advert in itself. Beverly.
Yeah, completely endorse the B Corp principles. I don't work in a business that's signed up to B Corp yet. So who knows whether we will choose to do that. But in terms of the principles, people, profit, planet, right behind it.
Yeah, because in some ways you don't have to be signed up to adopt the view. You've got such a positive and complex business, and the fact that, as you said, your CEO wants to go down that route. It might be a softly catchy monkey type scenario, but you're obviously going down that route. Camilla, should we be endorsing B Corp?
Debbie really took the words out of my mouth in terms of the philosophy. That's the way that all businesses should be operating now and thinking about their role and impact that they have on the planet and people around them. So yeah, in theory, it sounds great. I think the aspect of community also sounds very valuable in terms of having people to bounce ideas off and being collaborative, because it's not easy to make a shift within a business.
Yeah,
and actually make those changes.
Christine, wrap up for us, please.
Well, I just think every single business that there is, whether you go down B Corp or you go down any other one, whether it be your own attempt at doing something, whether you want to get LEAF accredited or whatever else, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous to think that it can be escaped anymore, and your employees will find you out if you try and do it as a greenwash. This is about people individuals who care. You won't recruit any young people if you're just doing this as a glossing over the top. So whatever your business is, you've got to start thinking about this. And it isn't about, I wonder if I can get a bit more cash if I do this. That's not why we're doing it. We're doing it because, as M&S was saying, there is no plan B. We have got to do something about the planet.
Yeah.
Shall I move on to next month?
Yes, don't forget to thank Ros.
Well, yeah, okay. All right. Ros, thank you very much. It's been a great inspirational conversation. And please keep coming back to Women in Food and Farming. I think we'd like to keep sort of speaking to you and hearing your views on lots of things. So thank you, Annie, for the recommendation. Thank you, Ros, very much for your time. Thanks, everybody, for attending, and those of you that are listening remotely. Right, next month, it's as ever, we're on the first Tuesday of the month at 5:30. It's Stephanie Barkley, who is the person behind Yellow Wellies, which is the big health and safety campaign in farming. More people die in farming, in our industry, than in any other. It used to be construction first, but construction have done a lot about it. You never see anybody on a building site without high-vis and hats and harnesses and, 3 points of attachment every time they go up a ladder. So, we just need to do this to our industry as well. And she's coming to give us give a talk about it. But I think that it's, what one thing we're talking about is the global thing that Ros has just been talking about, and this is much more right down on the ground. And I don't think there's anybody in our farming industry, and people in food are going to learn from it as well, that can afford really not to listen to what Stephanie's got to say next month.
Excellent. We look forward to that. So, Ros, you've been brilliant. I've got lots of stuff coming in that I'm going to pass over to you. We've got slightly two frivolous things. Annie, I've got 4 people who want to know where your jumper came from.
It's so old I can't actually remember.
What? This is outrageous. You're like our supermodel for the day. No offense to anyone else. And Beverly, can we see your dog, please? Everyone wants to see your dog.
No, because I haven't had time to go and get her. She's still in a kennel.
Oh, this is outrageous, right? You're never coming on again. That's the only reason why we wanted you on, Beverly, was to see your beautiful dog and Annie's jumper. Ross, you see what we have to put up with here? Thank you, everyone. Right, we're going to stop the social media feeds and we're going to go into the breakout room. So just bear with me. This is the April